with the ability to organize macros now in ProPresenter, I thought it'd be cool to actually walk you through how I would organize mine. And so right now I just have one long list. I haven't actually organized them yet. So we'll organize them together, and then hopefully this gives you some ideas of how you can organize them at your church to make it simpler for your volunteers while they're running service. All right, so here's what I think we're going to do. We're going to expand this show control area just so you can see it better. And then you'll see my list here is massive. If you don't have a massive list of macros, you should make a massive list of macros, because this is the perfect place to organize just the way that you're running your service, whether it's the things that you're setting up before service starts or things that you need to activate during service. And I'll walk you through some of why I use what I use or whatever as we go here. But basically, I just have this one long list, and we're going to break it up into the different areas to make it easier to find the macros faster. So I just have this one default collection that when you update to the newest version of ProPresenter, it'll just have the one default collection. And so in here, you can actually start creating them with a plus button. It's kind of like folders, but let's go plus, and then let's just call this Sunday lights. Then I know I have some lights specific for student ministry in here, so I'm gonna make one for that as well. I'm gonna go LF student lights. Oh, you know what? Just for clarity, I'm actually gonna put lights at the beginning, so it's easier to jump down to the lights section really fast. See, yeah, we can rename this one lights. Maybe we'll do the kind of like that thing. Oh yeah, that looks nice. Okay, I know that I'm gonna have timers for during our message so that we know what time the service message is supposed to end. So like when the pastor is supposed to be done preaching, we have some timers that are for each service. They count down to a specific time. So at 8:30, they're counting down to 10:35 or 9:35, because that's like an hour and 5 minutes. So not an hour and 5 minutes to preach, but we start the timer around 8:30. Anyways, so timer for messages, and then I have a timer for when we're starting our services. We have a countdown timer to the service starting. And so I have separate timers for that. I want to keep them separate for organization purposes. Even if people to quickly access to our timers, I like just the idea of being able to jump in here and be like, oh, our service time countdown timer is not running. We need to find that. Jump to this folder or collection. Service start times. Maybe that's too much times timer. I don't know. Let's start there for now. So I'm going to go back to my default collection, and then right at the top here, actually no, I'll skip that. Sorry. All of these black icons that I have previously, these are all lighting scenes. And the first group of them I know is for our Sunday lights. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to move them out of the default collection, and I'm going to put them in our Sunday lights. Now all of these are for our youth group. There's definitely no actions on these, but that's okay. I'll move them in there anyways. So we'll go move to LF students, and then the message timers and service timers. Here's the service start timers. So I'm going to take these service start timers, and I'm going to move them to service start times. And these are some of our message timers. I think these are old ones. We just happen to have them in there still. Let's see if there's more somewhere else. Yeah, these are the new updated ones. So I'm going to move these into message timers. I can actually delete these because these were just unnecessary extra ones that we don't use anymore. I wonder what they're linked to. We'll delete those. All right, what else did we have? I did all those already. So now I'm going to create a collection for all of my worship-based macros. So anytime that we have different songs, sometimes on our songs we do like a single line, and then we have a single line version of our audience look. And so I always drag that to this first slide. You'll see here we have a macro that says sending bars active, one line, meaning one line of text. And so I'm going to drag all of our worship ones into a worship collection. So let's create a worship collection. Worship. We'll also create one for message because we have multiple macros we use through our message. We have a macro for lower thirds that are text-based. We have a macro for lower thirds and side thirds, which are just graphics. We have a macro for the very first slide, which is setting a timer and clearing actions and doing different things. So that's what our message folder will be for, or message collection, I guess. So let me go in here and we'll get the worship ones. Worship. Then this is the message ones. Okay, as you can see here, I have nameplates or lower thirds that I put someone's name on. I'm going to create a folder called nameplates. So anytime that we have a lower third, we want to put someone's name up when they come up to preach or host or whatever, it'll be located in this collection. So let's go grab those. Can I do shift? No. Okay. Move to nameplates. Okay, and then I have, I would call these maybe audience looks. I don't know. They're very specific audience looks for different parts of the service. Maybe they're just transition elements. Maybe that's what we'll call them, as transition elements, because we have, when we do our intro video, this will play. When we have our closing host moment, we'll always use this macro. Pre-service, we'll always use this macro. These maybe they should be separate. So these are transition moments, and these are really audience looks specifically. That's all they do is switch the audience look to say, hey, this motion background is playing on our LED wall, but I want it to be on the main output, so I'm going to do side screens only, and now it's on the main output. So that's what those do, is just change what screens our content is displaying on. So I'm going to move that. I didn't create a collection yet, so I'm going to create a collection. Let's call it audience looks. And then we'll also create that transition pieces. Go back to our default. Where were we? These will be the audience look ones. So we move to audience looks. And then we're going to move to transition pieces. This isn't being used for anything. Oh, it is. Okay, there they are. That'll also be a transition piece. Good Friday timers. These are obviously message timers. They were just for specific services. But I'll put them, or not message timers, service start timers. But I will put them in our service start folder just so we have them. And then I'm going to label all of these Resi. This brings our projector down and a projector up. And this starts and stops Resi. And anything related to our video messages. So I'm going to click plus. Resi. Messages. Resi video messages. Where'd they go? Move to Resi video messages. This was all Good Friday lighting, which we're not going to reuse. Next year we'll do all new ones, so we can go ahead and delete those. They're old. Pre-service music. I'll make one called music. Let's see, pre-service music. LF Men is our men's ministry that happens on Tuesday nights, and they have specific lighting. It could just, I probably should just do a generic lighting one too. But for now, we'll just do LF Men. So this is lights, LF Men. And you can drag these around wherever you want them in here. Move to lights, LF Men. Right, we're getting really close down here to the end. All these ones at the top were actually just duplicates of previous ones. And the reason I have these is so that I can do a collection that is just essentially pinned macros. So if I want to have some macros that are people can easily find, that like these are the ones that are the most important. Maybe if something goes wrong in the middle of service and we need to find something fast, this is going to be at the top of the list, top collection. It'll always be open and ready to go for our operators. So I'm going to call this one pinned macros, because it's just all sorts of macros that are pinned that are our most important. Eventually I'm going to get rid of this default collection. So I'm going to take these. These are all important to me. And these are all important on being in our pinned ones. You can also duplicate or add to, and what it does is it leaves it in the collection it's in currently, and then it adds it to another one. So if you wanted to leave them, like let's say you were editing something in lights and you wanted it to be pinned, well, you can go to the lights collection and go add to, and then add it to the pinned one, and it would stay in the lights collection. It would also add it to the pinned macros collection. Okay, and then miscellaneous maybe. I think I'll put this one in worship. This mute and unmute MIDI lyrics, what it does is it stops Ableton from sending lyric control to our computer. That way our lyric operators can take over if we go off track, go spontaneous. So it just, all it does is mute and unmutes the actual track on Ableton that's sending MIDI notes. So I'm going to put this one in worship, just even though worship is mostly about audience looks, I think it makes sense to go in there just from a category standpoint. Some of these are generic default startup actions. This starts every single time ProPresenter loads. This is the first thing that happens. And then it's generic. This genlock test timer is just a timer I threw up on the screen at one point. So I'm not going to put them in a specific collection. So I'm actually going to create a one called miscellaneous. I'll just put MISC period. And then we'll add in these two. Oh, nice. You can drag and select multiple at a time. We move to miscellaneous. 21 days of prayer. It's a service start timer that I do need. 10-second countdown. I don't know what that is. LFYA service start. LF student service start. Another pursuit night service start. We'll move all of these to service start times. What is this? Oh, just a generic timer. Not 10 seconds, so that's for sure a minute. Actual timers. Like it should be like timers for meshes, timers for service start times, and then just we'll add a new one. And this will just be countdown timers. Generic countdown timers. And the reason someone might have something like a generic countdown timer, for example, is because if I go and I just change the timer over here, it doesn't show it anywhere. I would need a prop or a slide or something that has the data from that timer in it so that it would show somewhere. So a macro has a prop that has the data in it, and it's also starting the timer. So it's doing it all in one kind of button, essentially, which makes it really easy and nice to use. So go back to our default and add that last one. Move to generic countdown timers, and then I can delete this. There we go. So now we have our pinned ones, which we can organize however we want to here. And then all of our lights, our timers for service starting and for the message lengths, our worship actions and macros, our message macros. And by message, I don't mean the show control message. I mean in the middle of our message. These are the macros that we use, like our in the middle of our sermon or speaking. This is what we use for that. Nameplates for all of our hosts and speakers. Audience looks. Yeah, this looks good. It'd be nice and easy to be able to just come in here really fast. And if I want to reorganize this how I want to, I can. I'll probably do like pinned macros and then a worship and then message, because these are kind of like the three categories I need the most access to often. This is probably the second most. Second doesn't make sense. Fourth. Maybe we'll actually put nameplates right behind pinned macro. So if we need quick access to be able to see these people's names, we can. Then we can always go back to the pinned list. And then that's interesting. And then timers for the message is not super important to have easy access for, but it doesn't hurt to leave them near the other timer one just so it's organized well. Audience looks, transition pieces. Audience looks and transition pieces I'm really just using when I'm setting up service and I'm dragging them to a slide for someone to use at some point. Maybe we have a new bumper video and we need to add their correct macro for it. So I'll just go to that pre-service, drag it in. It's not for my operators to use necessarily. Music is really just a last, it's used for calendar events, and someone could click it, but we don't have to manually click it because the calendar triggers them. So I don't really need access to that often. Definitely don't need this one often, and miscellaneous don't need often. This one is important, but I have all of these in a Stream Deck. So every single one of those buttons here is accessible from the Stream Deck. So it's really less important on the fly and more of a in the setup sort of realm. So what I'm going to do with my macros is I'm going to keep the top of my list being the ones I need the access to the most, the collections I need the access to the most, the bottom of the list ones being the least, and the ones kind of in the middle for setup, pre-service, during the week when we're getting ready for service and we're not actually doing service live. So service live things being at the top, pre-service things being in the middle, like the things that we're working on, we're setting up service, and then things at the bottom being the least used or needing access to. I think this will work pretty well. And if I ever need to add more pinned things in the future, I can. Right now, I just have our lead pastor's nameplate that'll pop up as a lower third when I want it, and then some generic lighting scenes that we need quick access to, as well as the mute and unmute for the Ableton, so that if we go off track, we can click that really fast and just take over lyrics. So hopefully watching this was helpful for you for organizing your macros. I know even for me, just thinking through this out loud was kind of an interesting thing for me to do, because normally I'm silent while I'm doing this stuff. So it's kind of fun to like think through the processes out loud. But maybe you saw some macros in here that would be helpful for your church or for how you're running ProPresenter. And if there's something that you were thinking, oh, he could use this, like put it in the comments. Let me know if there's an action or macro that could benefit me that I don't already have in here. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful today.